Okay, I'm going to do a video on how to make your own brake caliper bracket so that you can use different brakes. Now, I use this one, and it's made by a company called Tokico, T-O-K-I-C-O. Now, I took and ground that off of here, but this is the one I use, and it comes on, I believe, an 83 and newer Kawasaki Ninja. 83 to like 86, or might even go past those years. And you can find these on eBay for about $20, $25, and the rebuild kit's another $20, and then new brake pads. And here's also a different one, and you can see the difference in these two is the spacing of this, and the overall size is bigger. But not a whole lot, and you could make one for this. I may even have time to do that. Now, the one other thing I want to say about this is that I read this in a magazine called the Horseback Street Choppers, and it was a tech article in there written by a guy named Fab Kevin. And Fab Kevin does have a shop. You can find him on Facebook or on the web, and he sells these brake brackets to mount these calipers. And he sells the caliper and the bracket for one wheel for about $2.25, which is actually a great deal. And my recommendation is that if you need one, you should buy from him if you can. Me, I'm cheap, and I did the whole thing for around $50 or $60. So one of the things that you can do is grab a piece of cardboard off of a legal notepad, and the angles on the cardboard on the back of the notepad are generally squared up, and then you can get a square and put lines all over your cardboard that are square. They're actually square. Me, I don't have that. I use cereal boxes, and you can use this fold in the cereal box, and you just come down it like that. And now best idea is to put a square somewhere down this. I would say measure it off. You get the idea, but like I said, I'm in a hurry, so I'm just going to put a square down it. Okay. A shovel head rear. You do it for the front brakes or the rear brakes, but this is a rear wheel, and this is a 10-inch shovel head rotor. Now, I like to center it up. I'm going to be quick about this, and then I just draw a circle. This is 2 inches, this area in here. And the other thing I do is you're going to need a protractor, and you just put yourself the protractor mark in the dead center. The other thing you need to do on this is to draw a line around the outside of the rotor the whole way. And once you do that, and you can take this off, and that is what you have. Now, sometimes when I do this, just for reference standpoint, I might get my pencil. Sometimes I do it in pencil. Your lines are sharper, but I want everybody on the video to see. So sometimes you could throw a few circles in here in case you have to place this back on, and then you can have it right in the right spot. Not that big a deal. That is how that's done. Now, the first thing I do is I am using a 3/4 axle. The older bikes have 3/4 of an inch axle. I like to draw a circle so that it's about 3/4, something in the center, and this will draw a 3/4 inch circle. Now, I find with these, because I'm not that delicate with what I'm doing, is that if I take it and hold it still and spin the cardboard, I now have a circle there. It's a little hard to see, but that's a 3/4 circle. That's going to be exactly the axle when the time comes. It's not really that important to have that, but at this point, what you want to do, you want to take and cut 1/4 of this or more. I'm going to come around here, cut it out, and I'm just going to take 1/4 of it off. Now, taking that quarter, what you do at this point is you take your caliper and you stick it, the caliper on that, and you bring it like so, and I bring it right up to that edge. I'll push it all the way in. Now, it can't go all the way in because it would rub on the top of the caliper. So what I do is take it up to there, I back it off a little bit, and then I delicately make a mark the bolt is going to sit, where the bolt is going to sit. Now, I can see those pencil marks, and I'm sure you can't, so I will dot them with a Sharpie. One is here, and one is there. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to take a look and see how around this is, where this is going to sit on the outside of here. And you want to take the protractor, and now what I do is, again, I make a point, I make a hole with the metal one. I like the metal one, has a nice point on it, right in the center. And now I draw a circle, and basically that 3/4 circle's close enough, especially for the video. Again, I take a circle around. Not that good when I'm using this thing. Never know how to adjust the pencil, so I don't really use one of these. Again, same thing here. There you go. So, I happen to have these plastic layouts. I'm sure you can get these on eBay super cheap. And for the illustration of this video, I will take Sharpie and highlight those circles. Okay, and then I'm going to highlight the one in the middle too while I'm at it. Now, this one is at 3/4, and I didn't exactly get it extended. That's 3/4, so that's the size of your axle. Now you want your rear plate to be bigger than that. Now my rear plate I made, because my spacers were 1¼ inch, I made them a little over 1¼ inch. And let's just say it's something like that. Again, I go back to this, and I try to find something that's around 1¼ inch. Let's just say that's it. Now this is where I want the outside of my bracket to be, that big. And you really need to look at the axle on your spacers to determine where that's going to lie. What ends up happening here is I have that circle, and I have these circles. Now, the one last thing I'm going to need is something over here to put on the rear of the Harleys, on the shovel head. You're going to need a rod that goes up and holds the caliper in place. That's how they do it with the banana calipers. So we want to leave some extra material down here. You go back to your ruler, and you just line up outside the circle to outside the circle, like so. Outside the circle, and I extend my lines a little bit. And I do it again. I go outside the circle here to outside the circle there. And this is not real critical on the outside. What is critical are the holes that you have to drill into this. I didn't really extend them, but you get the idea. Okay. And then, again, you go outside the circle again, and extend them. And that is somewhat what your bracket is going to look like. So, when it is I do this, I cut this out. Now I leave extra over here because you have to have the mount over here. Now my rear wheel had bigger spacers, plus it goes up against the swing arm. I believe I went 1.5 inches on it. And then you just cut it out like so, and there you have it. Now, with that being said, you now have these dimples on the center of the hole. You put this on a piece of 1/4 inch plate steel, 1/4 inch thick steel, or whatever material you're going to use, stainless, or if you want to use aluminum, I don't know what the thickness is that you would use, but steel's what I'm using. And then you just take a punch and you punch each one of these. You lay it on there, you mark it out on the steel. This is here's your steel. You just take and real simply, you just mark it out on the steel like this, right on the steel. And then while you have it in place, then you take a punch and punch each one. Then you have your marks. Now, with these two, here and here, you're going to drill them the size of the caliper. Happens to be a metric hole. I just take the bolts, I mic them, and I get a standard size drill and drill them as close as I can get them. Give them a little bit of leadway, maybe 10 thousandths over on that hole, whatever it happens to be. Then, the other thing you got to do, and I forgot to mention this, was a certain amount of this has to be cut to get around this piston, the outside of this piston. So you can take and just do something like this, or get a bigger one of these circles and just do something like connect the two circles, do something like this. And then you also want to cut that out too. Now you can see how that fits on that caliper just like that. And then after you have this with an extra piece of steel down here, of course it's not going to look quite like this. It'll be coming over here and something like that. You take it and put it on your motorcycle. You drill this out to 3/4. You get a 3/4 drill and drill this. You mic the bolts, outside diameter of the bolts, and then you drill these holes that size so that the bolt will slip in and that. After you cut it out, you put it on your motorcycle, the caliper and this, and I have it facing down, and I mount the caliper, and the rotor is here. It's going to go like this. You can see where it kind of lines up, and then you determine where your mount needs to be. Now, I've already done this. This is what this mount looks like. Now, this is something I already made 2-3 weeks ago. It's, like I said, it's steel. I took it, and this one happened to be cut by a friend with a plasma torch. Now, I made this a while back. I line these holes up. You can see, I did this really quick, but you can see where it's pretty close. This top hole's not quite right. So you can see this mounts on here with no problem. I drill this hole first, the 3/4 hole, and I double check these holes before I drill them. Once I get one hole drilled, I don't drill the second hole. I do have a mark on it, but what I do is I mount this one up like so. I get it right where I want it, and then I turn it over and I get a transfer punch. The transfer punch is one that sits in this hole relatively tight fit. Drop it in and then hit it. The other way to do it is you can come down with a pencil like this and kind of mark a dot on your steel, or come with an awl and put some dye on it or put some Sharpie all over it and mark it, and then you have your mark where it's supposed to be. You see there's a little bit of play on this, not much though, and you can punch it perfectly. Now when I put the bolts in, and I believe I have these in right, probably have them in backwards, but I had to cut my bolts a little bit. But you can see, if I back them off a little, very little play in that. And then also, I mounted it up, and this is going to be where my mounting tang goes. Now this is going to face down like this. If the wheel were here, it's going to be the bottom. Like I said, make sure you back off the rotor just a little bit, and then here is going to be my mount. I want to make sure that you can see that. I'm going to take it. I happen to use a stainless Allen head cap screw. I come in, these two Heim joints I got on eBay. They were I don't know, $10 for the two of them. They're 3/8. This is a 3/8. I got the piece of stainless on eBay. It was like, I don't know, $5 or $8 or something. It's a piece of 3/8 stainless. I just got a die nut and ran it down both ends of the stainless, and this is how it's going to be. Now, I just want to take this apart real quick so there's no mystery with any of this. Like I said, I just ran a 3/8 die nut down this and put threads on it. I cut it to the length I want it and then threaded it, and then you just screw these on. Now I plan on, once this is all set, everything will get red Loctite, because when it comes to brakes, it's one of the few places I will use red Loctite, because I hate taking red Loctite off. You need a torch to get it off, and that's how this mounts. No secret there. Now you can also do this for the front brakes. The front brakes, I will say, were much harder to make the bracket. But this is a way to put, these are 4-piston calipers. This is a way to put 4-piston calipers on your bike for about 50 or 60 bucks. Another, and this was probably another, let's just say 20. So for 80 bucks, I did everything. On the front, I did the exact same thing to make a front bracket. This one's not finished, as you can see. The red's dye where I'm going to grind down some of this. But this is the front axle on a 84 FL shovel head. This goes in the axle. This goes where the banana caliper was. I have the holes marked where the two banana calipers pegs go through. And I made a sleeve for the top one, and I don't think you can use the bottom one. It's so tight up against the rotor, I don't think you can get a bolt in. So this goes on like this, just the same. This is the front brake. Now on this one, I need to take a little off this area here and just make it a little more clean and easy to look at. And I'm also going to take some off of here, just to contour it, make it a little more pleasant to the eye, because you could see this one a lot more. Here's the axle. This works. And the banana calipers, I don't think that I can use this one, because those banana caliper holes are 7/16. I drilled them 3/8, and on the top one I made a sleeve, so I'm going to put on the other side of the aluminum fork tube a piece of steel. Now I'm going to drill through here, go through the sleeve and the hole, and then put threads on the inside and then pull it up that way. Or what I may do is put a nut and a bolt and not even worry about threading anything, just draw them out 3/8. So that's the situation with this. The front's a lot harder, but the idea is the same with the front. The idea of you drill the axle hole, and then you get one of these holes and get it right. Then you do a transfer punch through the back side into the steel, and you get your second hole perfect. Now when I made these cardboard cutouts and really took my time. I took my time marking these, and they were perfect, but I did check it with a transfer punch. But the hard thing is to get this in the right position. It did take me 2 tries to get this one right. What I'd probably recommend is if you got a set of veneer calipers and went from the center of this hole to the center of this hole and did a measurement on the bike to get that close. What I ended up doing was I made this half, and when I came up with this piece, I marked it, I scribed it through. I put machinist die on it and then scribed through, and then found the center. Anyway, that's how you make these brackets. This is the front, and that was the rear. Now the other way to do this, I want to show you again, because it doesn't matter what bracket you're truly using. Draw the circle. Again, I'm not going to spend much time doing this. I'm going to draw the outside. Cut the circle out. Cut this one off, so it's not quite so confusing. Okay, now I'm going to take the other caliper that I have. This one, same kind of thing. You put it all the way on. Okay, for ease of explanation. Now, again, you make a centering mark here. Make a centering mark here. Now, I'm going to dot those here and here. Now I get my plastic circles. I mark these with about the right size dot. I make sure they're centered because it's important. And now you draw your lines. We're just going to use the 2-inch circle. And this one will come all the way out to this one. They're in line. And then with this one, you can come right back over to here. Come right back over to here. And on this one, and I would make this thicker down here. This one, as you can see from the caliper, it has this big V, so you can put the tab right here. And if you're worried about this is going to be a little thicker, right? Just say it comes down here and then comes around because I cut some of the cardboard off. And you could put your tab right there. Let's just say it was right here. So once you do that, you take and cut it out. And this is a much simpler caliper to deal with because of the way the bolts are lined up. Come down here like this. Again, I'd say this would be much thicker than this because this don't really give you enough mount. To me, I want at least that much. So I find the circle that's about that size, and that would be this one. And that's how thick that bracket's going to be. Because any more than that, you can even make it thicker than that, but any more than that, it's not doing anything as far as clamping goes. You also put your 3/4 axle hole here. Let's just fake it like I did it. There you would have your bracket to mount this style caliper. And you can see on this bracket that it's not going to go past here. So a certain amount of that you may want to contour for it. But it's on the front. It's on the front side. So you can make it as thick as you want here. But right here, you got to come around this stuff. And part of coming around is this bolt. So you can make it thicker over here and come around it. That way there's plenty of metal. And you just put a little cutout right here. And that's how you do these brackets. When you do these brackets, they surprisingly, they do line up with the rotor or pretty close to it. And at that point, you have to cut your wheel spacers accordingly. If it's 1/4 inch steel, then you got to cut a 1/4 inch off your spacer. If you need to move the bracket in or out, then you might have to take this surface down a little bit to move it out, in and out. This one would be easier for that. That one's a little tougher, but you could do it. But if you look on both of these, if you need to move the caliper, you can move it over by this thickness right here if you had to. Not going to take a lot off there, and you're not going to get a lot of movement. You can also space your rotors in and out. You can use washers on here, in between here and this, to space the caliper over further one way or the other, and use a couple washers as shims. So again, good luck.